From the CISO Series, it's Cybersecurity Headlines.
Google Cloud and Cloudflare outages reported Thursday, zero-click data leak flaw in Copilot, and IoT cameras worldwide stream secrets to anyone with a browser. These are some of the stories that my colleagues and I have selected from this past week's cybersecurity headlines, and now we're looking forward to some insight, some opinion, and some expertise from our bacon-level returning guest. Yes, the fantasy football legend herself, Christina Shannon, CIO over at KIK Consumer Products. Christina, we haven't had you on since March. I got to ask, how was your week in cybersecurity?
My week was great. So I'm in the chemical CPG space, and in this space, it's always a challenge between IT and OT. And we had some wins this week on security awareness, just-in-time security awareness, and some bridging between our two groups. So call that a win.
Good to hear. We cover those stories quite a bit. We have some in the lineup today, so
yeah.
Good to hear. Always top of mind. That is good stuff. Also, some good stuff is our sponsor for today, Vanta, a new way to GRC. Remember to join us on YouTube Live. To do so, go to CISOSeries.com, hit the old events drop down, and look for the cybersecurity headlines week in review image. If you click on it, you will join us. You will join luminaries like Kevin Farrell, Reed CCL, that are already lighting up our chat room. Reed, I think, is a new name in there, so he's leaving some emojis in there. It's all good. I guess emoticons. It's an emoticon technically. Sorry, Reed. I don't mean to slight your keyboard sophistry there. Be sure to contribute your comments in the chat. We love to see them. They help make the show better, and we'll try to do our best to address them in the show. If you can't join us live, send us feedback through email. It's electronic mail. It's really catching on. Feedback@CISOSeries.com is the address. Before we jump into the news, just a quick reminder that these opinions are, in fact, Christina's own, not necessarily those of her employer, friends, staff, or affiliates. First up here, Google Cloud and Cloudflare outages reported. You may have noticed this in your internet life. Google Cloud and Cloudflare suffered outages yesterday, impacting services such as Google Home and Nest, Snapchat, Discord, Shopify, and Spotify, as well as creating access authentication failures and Cloudflare Zero Trust Warp connectivity issues. Down Detector received tens of thousands of reports with impacted users experiencing Cloudflare and Google Cloud server connection, website, and hosting problems. The issue started around 1:15 p.m. Eastern and was resolved through the afternoon. Getting into some of the fallout here, Cloudflare is blaming their outage on Google, but regardless, it caused a ripple in parts of the interwebs, especially if you were trying to authenticate if you were in fact a human. Resolved relatively quickly, but it just shows how dependent we all are on fast and consistent always internet services. Got to have all the nines all the time. Christina, I'm curious, what goes through your mind when you see these types of events happen?
Well, the first thing that went through my mind was I remember the AWS East, right? Incident from like 21, right? That's what it reminded me of. But then the second thing I thought, oh, okay. So the tabletop, the inventory has to expand a little bit where, now you do blind tabletops, meaning like for cloud providers, meaning pretend or, look at it, do the scenario where your zero trust gateway is gone, your SSO is gone, and then, are your business critical applications still running? I think that would be that's one of the strategies I think would be really effective, and a lot of folks should start doing, especially from this outage.
Yeah, it's Cloudflare is just one of those, it always needs to be there, right, for so much of this stuff. And yeah, that kind of like, let's see how far down the to the roots we can go when we're tabletopping. Very much critical, even though it's notable enough that we're reporting on it, right? There's outages on a lot of services all the time. Slack goes down and everybody doesn't work for a while. It's great. But, Cloudflare is a different beast altogether, though.
Yeah, and Cloudflare, where it sits, to your point, it's that is super important to make sure you don't have a single point of failure right there, and that you can still, your critical applications can still run. Agree.
All right, next up here, zero-click data leak flaw in Copilot. Researchers at AIM Labs documented a flaw in Microsoft 365 Copilot dubbed Echo Leak, part of an emerging class of LLM scope violation vulnerabilities. By sending an email with a hidden prompt injection in an otherwise banal business email, the researchers could get around Microsoft's cross-prompt injection attack classifier protections, which is a surprisingly hard thing to say. When a user later asks about the email, the Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG engine, if you're an LLM head, pulls in the malicious injection, inserting internal data into a crafted markdown image and then sending it to a third-party server. It's a pretty clever little attack there. Given that Microsoft has today announced the release of Copilot Vision, kind of a real-time version of Recall, CISOs probably should have a lot more work cut out for them with regards to employees who want to use these kind of Copilot services at work. When it comes to evaluating these and this kind of new breed of LLM scope violations, I'm curious, Christina, what's your advice?
Like when I think about the Vision product, I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? If it's an invoice or if it's an admin screen, it captures it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But right.
Oh God, you somehow made it sound so much worse.
Well, where I'd start is I'd look at, what are the roles that you're going to give this Copilot license to, and I would make sure that you don't give it to any roles that have privileged access or until you really put down your guardrails, right? And then second, DLP, that's what comes back into play. You have to look at, can you do DLP on your outputs? That'd probably be where I'd start, the first two things.
Kevin Farrell helpfully pointing out that Clippy never did this back in the day. So your move,
right.
Microsoft. Clippy was cool. Clippy was cool. He wasn't gonna narc on you. Yeah, it is interesting seeing these. I've heard multiple people say like everyone's still piloting all of their Copilot stuff, right? We're still stuck in this where we very clearly see there's a ton of opportunity, right, for productivity here. And it still feels so much like the Wild West when it comes to understanding all the different threat surfaces and these kind of attacks where, you would barely see this as an attack, but it's like, oh, getting this to get ingested so it gets put out through this specially trained, this algorithm that's trained so that it can be more useful to you, right? Bring up surface only your useful company information is something I think we're still trying to grasp and grapple with.
I think you're 100% right? It's a new version of the new future 0 day type attack.
All right, next up here, IoT cameras worldwide stream secrets to anyone with a browser. Security researchers at BitSight accessed 40,000 internet-connected cameras globally, and almost half of those were in the U.S., which reveal live feeds from data centers, hospitals, factories, and homes. Many required no hacking, just a web browser. About 78% used HTTP, and the rest used real-time streaming protocol, or RTSP. The findings back at DHS warning regarding Chinese-made cameras in critical infrastructure could aid spies or criminals. Researchers also found IP feeds being shared on forums, showing bedrooms and workshops, potentially for stalking or extortion or just general creepiness. Christina, almost every show, there's a story where I feel like I have to look over my metaphorical glasses in a school marmy fashion. Let me just get those down here. And this is definitely one of them, showing off my Aqualine profile. If there only had been some sort of clue buried within the phrase, Chinese-made cameras in critical infrastructure, is this the thing that obviously could happened, or is there more to it here than that?
I think that, when I think about the actual cameras themselves, right? I always think it's a good idea to go and look at, what there's a ban list for the US, and go look at that list and then see if you have cameras that are that, manufacturer model. And if you do, you probably should look at switching those or replacing those, right? But I think the problem is more so that a lot of folks really need to get back to the basics and look at, are they resetting the password, the default password? Do they have port 80 open, right? I think a lot of it is, do a day on Shodan.io, right? Monitor. That's a scary. You spend an hour there and leave just terrified. But I think a lot of it goes back to people are missing basic security hygiene when they put these devices in play. And it's especially scary in, industries like mine, chemical infrastructure or critical infrastructure, right? Because you need the cameras because you have to have visibility of what you're doing, your production, and your quality. But at the same time, you also need to include the security guys up front or gals up front before you deploy them.
Yeah, and I certainly, for SMBs for home usage, it's a different situation in terms of the level of security awareness, for lack of a better term. Although these devices aren't new, so I would hope there'd be a little bit more, at least skepticism, right, about what kind of, if I'm buying a white label camera or something like that. But yeah, for business and stuff like that, some of this does fall under basic hygiene. Again, don't want to not victim shaming here. But there has to be a basic level of, this is connecting and displaying something from my network. I should probably look into how it's doing this in any way, as opposed to plug in, it works. Okay. Just don't go to this one web address.
Yeah.
Just don't go to our IP address and we'll be fine.
Exactly.
All right. Before we move on to our next story, we have to spend a few moments with our sponsor for today, Vanta. Is your manual GRC program slowing you down? There's something more efficient than spreadsheets, screenshots, and manual processes: Vanta. With Vanta, GRC can be so much easier, while also strengthening your security posture and driving revenue for your business. Vanta automates key areas of your GRC program, including compliance, risk, and customer trust, and streamlines the way you manage information. The impact is real. A recent IDC analysis found that compliance teams using Vanta are 129% more productive. Get back time to focus on strengthening security and scaling your business. Get started at vanta.com/headlines. That's VANTA.com/headlines. I have to laugh, Kevin Farrell. But the camera on the ban list will arrive one day earlier and cost $4.37 less. When all that critical infrastructure rip out stuff was going down, I don't know, what is this, 6 years ago now? I very much sympathetic to being like, we have X amount of budget, we can do so much. It's a little bit more ridiculous when you get into the like individual camera space. But Kevin, you made me laugh, so thank you. Our next story here: Cloudflare creates OAuth library with Claude. Cloudflare recently published the open-sourced OAuth 2.1 library, which was written almost entirely by Anthropic's Claude LLM. I won't say Claude quite enthusiastically anymore. I was very excited by this headline. Notably, the company also published a comprehensive documentation of the process, and that includes a full prompt history, like every single prompt they use, all the inputs and outputs. Really interesting stuff. Software developer Max Mitchell reviewed that process, finding the LLM excelled when given a substantial code block to work off of and clear context and explanation of what needed to be changed. I'd also add that humans do that kind of well with clear context and good source material. In all instances, the LLM excelled at generating documentation. Famously, humans terrible at that. However, the code needed human intervention for styling and other housekeeping tasks. Mitchell suggested looking at it the same way as collaborating with a human developer. Instead of expecting one-off prompting success, you should see it as a collaboration. On Cloudflare's end, their tech lead, Kenton Varda, they oversaw the project, came in healthy dose of skepticism, didn't know if this was possible, and ended up saying, I was trying to validate my skepticism. I ended up proving myself wrong. So from waterfall to agile to DevOps to Claude, CI/CD now has a new playmate. I'm curious, Christina, does this confirms people's fear that AI is coming for their jobs, or should we all be looking for our new AI collaborators here?
I don't think AI is coming for, a developer's job. I think that there'll be a big difference on those who are using AI and those who aren't, in terms of productivity and what you can build. Even more so, though, I think that really what this proves is that there's going to be a fundamental shift, and I think it's already happening in terms of the significance of the QA developer, right? Mm-hmm. For many years, the QA developer, it's always been, get the product out the door. If it's got some bugs, we'll fix them, we'll iterate. But, the glory's always been with, at least in my experience, with the development team, right? And then the QA developers are somewhat like the security engineers that are like, hey, don't release that yet, right? And so I think
the noble Cassandras in their organization.
Yeah, exactly. So I really think that like the QA folks are going to get to shine. And I think the developers are going to become more QA type developers in the long term.
Yeah, and it's really interesting just from my experience with that is QA is usually like, all right, I'll get my foot in the door with this, and then I'll go, do mm-hmm. the more prestigious work, the real work, not poo-pooing QA in any way, extraordinarily vital and hard work.
Yeah.
But I love that idea of that becomes where the human provides right, that value for a lot of this, like keeping everything scrutable still to human review, I think is also something that's going to be increasingly important for the stuff. Admittedly, it's a lot easier when you have AI that isn't too lazy to do the documentation. I think that's going to be one of those big boons that we don't yet appreciate. I need all my man files. Don't AI help me out with all those. I need good man
I
files.
completely
Please.
agree. Right. You're right. Humans are not great at documentation, whether it's IT, cyber, other professions. Yeah, we're not great at it. So I definitely think Claude and others can help there.
All right, next up here, bill seeks to strengthen healthcare security. Congressman Jason Crow introduced the bipartisan healthcare cybersecurity bill to Congress. If passed, the bill would require CISA and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to work together on a measure to improve cybersecurity across the sector. This includes sharing of threat intelligence, CISA provided training to healthcare orgs, the creation of healthcare risk management plans with best practices, and creating an objective basis for determining high-risk assets. So, Christina, it's interesting to hear all of these things that CISA has yet to accomplish, while it's also simultaneously facing some steep cuts and kind of a reimagining of their mandate, one could say. Not wanting to get into politics here, but this bill being proposed, sectors like healthcare asking for CISA-provided training. I guess, what are we to assume about its future? Is this a potential new direction for CISA, or does it not align with where the administration sees that agency going?
Well, first of all, like I'd love to be in the room, when they're deciding the priorities for budget cuts, right? Because I'd be the person probably get escorted out, but the one definitely screaming that like, what? Come on, like put your thinking hat on. Like, why are you? Let's look at all the data and look at all the breaches. Look at it. Let's not get rid of the folks who are trying to help, mid-sized companies or a lot of these companies who have proven time and time again that they're not going to get self-reliant, or they're not going to become, cyber resilient on their own. They need help. I go back to even the industry I'm in, right? To switch a little bit from healthcare, but similar conceptually, where it's, the Critical Infrastructure Reporting Act. It's like without CISA, that wouldn't have really ever came to be. And so then you're talking about a lot of organizations and companies that they wouldn't get there without having to report incidents and then do things so that, they don't have the incidents. But it's all I think CISA is a very, very important organization. I think they've done a lot of great good. I'm hopeful that, bipartisan type pressure, keeps it to where, the budget cuts don't, take the money. I don't think they're, I still think they're going to be a relevant organization. I just hope the budget cuts don't go too far.
I mean, if there's one thing, it's like, emergency services and healthcare are the two things I think we can get around. Like, don't let our hospitals get hacked. Seems like something I don't want to say that, because it turns out we can disagree on anything. That's the marvelous thing about humanity as well. But yeah, this and healthcare is so unique. I mean, this is where I could see CISA having like a really powerful mandate. Again, working with Health and Human Services to put this together, where you're dealing with these organizations that just have so many unique challenges, all these disparate systems, things that, you want to talk about OT challenges, things that are not getting updated regularly, just access to people. I always think of this like securing a hospital,
right?
When you have these people constantly flowing in and out, like, so yeah, like I hope
Ascension, think about that one, right?
Yeah.
Like that proved that hospitals aren't going to just do it on their own, right? So they need help. So
yes,
yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I hope if there is a new mandate for CISA, or a reimagined mandate for CISA, that maybe these kind of specific vertical best practices and other resources for those can be part of that for sure.
Kevin's note is also funny here. Sorry.
Oh, Kevin, you're trying to distract us here. Yes, maybe a little find and replace there. Not bad legislation has been made with similar practices. I'll just say that. All right. And our last story here, Sinotrack GPS device flaws lead to remote vehicle control and location tracking. Speaking of CISA, they warned about 2 vulnerabilities in Sinotrack GPS devices that can be exploited to access a vehicle's device profile, track its location, or even cut power to the fuel pump in certain types of cars. Sinotrack apparently uses the same default password for all units and does not require change during setup. I would also point out this is a potential school marmy stare down the nose situation. Since the username is just the device ID printed on the label, someone could easily gain access by either physically seeing the device or spotting it online on photos. You're just on eBay. That could be on there. That could be enough. I mean, heck, we have Copilot Vision could just take care of that for you too. So Christina, in contrast to the secretive Chinese-made camera story that we had before the break, I'd quickly surmise that a company that's called Sinotrack is, I don't know, known for Chinese tracking software, maybe does what it says on the tin. It's in the name. Aside from that, let's look past the marketing brilliance of the name and ask why people still do not want to change their passwords, or why do companies allow for that kind of practice when they know lazy people, or people are lazy as a rule with these kind of things, and will not change it unless you make them.
I think it goes back to like someone had said that in the comments earlier, where, the people are always going to pick convenience over security, right? I think, like, when I think about manufacturers, that's been something I've been saying for a long time. Many people have been saying, like, make it to where when you get these devices, it forces a password reset, right, from the app, or when you're connecting it. Like, don't make people think about it. Because when I think about that, I think about, the average like fleet manager, unless they're security aware, they probably get these devices. It probably has a QR code. They're scanning the QR code. They're up and running, right? It's like plug and play, right? They don't really think. I don't, at least in my opinion, I don't think they really think about, okay, now I need to go in and change my password. So I think it's more of that than anything. Just people are focused on get it up and running, start using it, and there's not enough. I think the manufacturers need to do a little bit more.
Yeah, and this is where, like, just like some human interface design, like this to me is almost not even it's less of a security story. It's more like, let's account for the realities of human behavior. And it's like, whatever it is, people just, like you said, they just want to get it set up. If you give them an easy way to set it up, they're going to take that and get to play with their new toy, or get get this thing off of their desk that their boss told them to set up, or whatever the situation is, right? And so, like so many things in security, I do think there's it's so much of a, if we just designed it to account for our horrible human frailty, maybe then we'd be in a better place. CCL coming out strong here. We're going to talk about our thumbs up or an eye roller with you, Christina, in just a second here. But this is CCL's facepalm story of the week. CCL, I can't necessarily disagree with you there. Thanks to everybody in the comments, though, for helping, making a lot of fun. Kevin Farrell with the zingers today. I'm going to go ahead and say he gets the award for Zinger comment of the week here. But we also had CCL, of course, that we acknowledged in here. We saw Reed in there. Reed, you left your emoticon, excuse me, and then abandoned us. And the big boss man, David Spark, in there as well. Thanks to everybody that gets in there and has some fun on a Friday. Christine, before we get out of here, we alluded to it. What's your thumbs up or eye roller story this week? Something you reacted strongly to?
I thought Claude making like the OAuth library, I thought that was really cool. I thought that was cool in the sense that the way it was, the research was provided, it was all open, right? Like you said, you saw all the prompts. And then, like I said, it actually like tickled me pink a little bit, and thinking about, oh, here comes the rise of the QA developer.
Yeah, it gets you thinking
like
about
the
these
underdog,
challenges.
right? The underdog gets to rise. So.
Yeah, I applaud Cloudflare for being as public with that, and knowing that they would get a healthy dose of skepticism to completely open up that process. I think we need a little bit more of that in the industry. Christina, before we get out of here, where can people find you on the cyberspace if they're so inclined to give you a follow, see what you're up to?
On LinkedIn, that's a great place to find me. Yeah, I'm always there.
And are you hiring over there at KIK Consumer Products?
Yes, we have a few roles on my team, and then we're always hiring, generally speaking. But yes, we are.
Fantastic. Give those a look if you are in the market. Well, Christina Shannon, CIO over at KIK Consumer Products. I didn't acknowledge it before, but we had bacon for you. Our producer, Steve, put up bacon for you for being our prestigious fourth time guest. Thank you so much for being on the show. The bacon is back. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, of course, Christina, for just making the show fantastic and a fun time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. It's always good to be here.
Thanks also to our sponsor for today. Vanta, a new way to GRC. Thanks again to everybody in the audience today. We can't always get every single comment up on the screen, but that doesn't mean we don't appreciate them. And indeed, love them with all of our hearts. Don't forget, you can send us feedback. Also, email feedback@cisoseries.com. We'd love to read some of those, if relevant, on the show. You can also just send us love, and I will take that into my heart as well. Please join us next week for Super Cyber Friday. It's back, baby, with our topic, hacking what it takes to become a CISO, an hour of critical thinking about the skills you need to move up to the top cyber leadership role. After that, we'll have another that's at 1 p.m. and then we'll have another episode of our week in review starting at 3:30 Eastern. To register for both or for more information, or just if you're a fan of web pages, go to our events page at CISOSeries.com. In the meantime, you can get your daily news fix every single day through cybersecurity headlines. Give us about 6 minutes. We'll get you all caught up. Until the next time we meet, for myself, for our glorious producer, Steve Prentice, for Christina Shannon, for the big boss man, David Spark, and everyone on the CISO Series team, here's wishing you and yours to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOSeries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.